Steelers' 2024 regular season will conclude on Saturday night in Pittsburgh against the Bengals. Whether that's the final game at Acrisure Stadium yet, we don't know. Of more importance for the Steelers is finishing the season strong, snapping the three-game losing streak, and getting ready for the postseason. Thanks very much for being with us for the matchup presented by Shell Polymers alongside Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson from The Drive. I'm Rob King. We thank you for being with us. And guys, obviously playoff scenarios, that's the big topic right now. Where are the Steelers going to be? They could be the third seed. They could be the fifth seed. They could be the sixth seed. They could play any of three opponents.
Yeah, and they could play here at Acrisure Stadium. They could play in Baltimore. They could play in Houston. So that's kind of where everything could wind up at. Three possible opponents, three possible seeds there.
Yeah, and all these are important. Like, you'd love to be at home, obviously, sure, Matt. But I think right now, just snapping this three-game losing streak, getting that good feeling.
Yeah.
You're not going to be cowed going into Baltimore, a team you've had success against, or Houston if you have to go on the road. It feels like winning and playing a good game might be more important than who you're playing or where.
Yeah, we all know the last three games have not gone as everybody would love, and it was a really tough stretch. But I think you need to build a little momentum, get a win, not end up as a sixth seed, and get some momentum going into the playoffs. And meanwhile, your opponent now, they've been playing playoff football basically for a month. I mean, Cincinnati's been do or die every step of the way.
Well, really longer than that.
Probably longer than that, yeah.
Yeah, four-game winning streak for the Bengals. Remember, they started out 4-8. They're now 8-8 on the season. And, Dale, when you look at the Steelers' offense, it was averaging over 28 points per game. In the first 7 games, Russ Wilson was at the quarterback position. Last 3 during the 3-game losing streak, it's down to 13.3 points per game. A lot of things have happened. A lot of things have transpired. They've been close to not having those be the numbers, but they are the numbers. They only need to look back to before that streak began, a couple games before that, week 13, to see these numbers against Cincinnati. Obviously, you can't expect this every game, but this would be nice to kind of revisit these sort of numbers.
Yeah, maybe you can expect this against this particular Cincinnati defense, but this was also, if you remember, the last time that George Pickens was completely healthy before he, injured his hamstring that week in practice before the game against the Browns. And in that game, Russell Wilson just put on a clinic against the Cincinnati defense, just really hitting different receivers. I think the Steelers had 8 different guys with 20 or more receiving yards in that game. It was pretty dynamic.
Yeah, it was dynamic. And then when you think about the matchups now, Matt, as we look at this, and we're going to get to George Pickens in a moment, but the running back play, we saw Najee Harris go over 1,000 yards on the ground last week. Jalen Warren is continuing to get better and better. They're without Logan Wilson, their best inside linebacker. You have Pat Freiermuth. That's an area I think you think that the Steelers can exploit.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to focus on the passing game in that regard. I do think they'll have success on the ground. Warren's come on really strong as just a producer in general. But, if you notice, in the middle of the field, the Steelers had a lot of success against this team. And really over the past couple of years, Freiermuth has had some of his best games against Cincinnati, down the seam, attacking these linebackers and safeties. But really what stood out to me in the first meeting was how available the short game to the running backs were, particularly between the numbers. Go down, turn around, almost like an extended handoff, or hit them in stride, and you're picking up 8, 9, 10 yards repeatedly. Now, we know how this league works. They watch that film too, and they're smart on their side of the ball. Are they going to give you that again? At least make them earn it, we'll see.
Yeah, those short passes wind up being, as you're indicating here, long gains.
Yeah.
So if they do that, if they make that adjustment, what does that do for the long game here for the Steelers? Because we know Russ Wilson loves to throw the ball down the field, and his main deep threat is back.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you look at in this matchup, and I think one of the reasons why Cincinnati was so willing to give up those catches underneath. They were 13 of 13 for 146 yards passing the ball to the running backs in that game. George Pickens had 3 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown, and I think Cincinnati was really cognizant of, hey, we can't let that guy beat us down the field. We can't let him get over the top and give up the quick touchdown. They were more willing to die by death by 1,000 paper cuts. And so, I really think, Russell Wilson and George Pickens are really going to have to pick their spots against Lou Anarumo's defense here, because I expect them to try to play that kind of umbrella zone coverage. But at times when you get that look that you want in that situation, you can't shy away from taking those shots to George Pickens.
I think we can assume that they won't shy away, right? I mean, if Russell Wilson sees those opportunities, we saw him go to Mike Wilson on the outside to Mike Williams down the sideline, and Pickens is I mean, he's premier at this.
No doubt. And I think we got to throw Austin in there as well. Calvin Austin's been getting downfield and making some big plays. But Pickens, back to the earlier conversation, has such a ripple effect on the entire offense, too,
Yes.
that every team that faces him going back to week 1 fears the damage he can do over the top. And he's got a ton of long catches. He's a ridiculous ball winner. I mean, going up and getting it. He's really good after the catch. So having him back, I think, is extremely important.
You know, and I think that I agree, and I agree on all counts. And that leads me to my key, because if you're going to throw the ball down the field, it usually takes a little bit more time. And to me, that means Dan Moore having the kind of success he had against Trey Hendrickson in the first matchup, guys. He held Trey Hendrickson, who's tied for the league lead in sacks, without a sack, really nullified his ability. But this is a premier pass rusher, 14 sacks on the season, as you mentioned, tied with Myles Garrett for the league lead. So if he can give Wilson time, and there was only 2 sacks last meeting for 4 yards, so a lot of that was Russ Wilson getting flushed out of the pocket. This is the big matchup to me, because this gives Cincinnati an opportunity if they can create a turnover or force the Steelers into a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, and it's more than just Dan Moore out there on a guy like Hendrickson. I mean, he is the straw that stirs the drink in their pass rush. So it has to be, the backs chipping in. It has to be maybe the tight ends, even the guards at times, if he tries to stunt or something like that. It's a multi-person job. And, if you remember, that Cincinnati game the first time around was coming off the game against Cleveland up there, where Myles Garrett had a successful game against him, and then you see Dan Moore come out and shut Hendrickson out. And so, they're going to work hard to try to do that again this week.
Yeah, and we basically just had this conversation about a month ago. I mean, Hendrickson's clearly their best defensive player, and I'm sure every offense that faces the Bengals says, we got to worry about Hendrickson. We got to worry about Hendrickson. And he still produces, so it's easier said than done.
I would say this, though, with Cincinnati struggling as much as they are on defense, you would think, they want to come up with a strip sack. They want to come up with an interception, a ball that flutters out because Wilson's being hit from the backside by Hendrickson. So that's an important part of what they need to do, I think, and that's create some turnovers.
And that's helped in their winning streak, too. The defense didn't all of a sudden get more talented, but they've caused more big plays, sacks and turnovers on the defensive side of the ball for the Bengals.
All right, our final regular season version of Yin's Chat is here, and this is the opportunity for you to play predictive games and compete against Steelers Nation for a chance to win this week's prize, which is a football signed by Jalen Warren. He's been hot, over 90 yards of scrimmage over the last couple of games. Remember to keep playing each week for a chance at new prizes and a chance at a VIP trip to the 2025 draft in Green Bay. Stick around. We're going to take a look at the Steelers defense facing a big challenge against Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense when the matchup continues, presented by Shell Polymers.
Hi folks, welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor Museum.
Now this is the best era.
I couldn't agree more. Those teams were unstoppable.
The teams were really good in the 90s.
Come on, you couldn't catch those teams of the 2000s. Literally.
The 70s were the best.
No way, the 2000s.
Whoa, stop fighting. I think every era was pretty sweet.
You said it, kid. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves.
Wait, you're T?
Steelers playoff scenarios. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals need to beat the Steelers, and they need help. Well, the Steelers defense isn't going to be feeling particularly helpful, you wouldn't think. Thanks for being with us for the matchup presented by Shell Polymers. And when we look at the Cincinnati offense, extremely explosive. It's the reason that the Bengals have won 4 consecutive games. But they also supply opportunities for defenses. We saw pick 6 in this last game between these two teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key to beating the Bengals is obviously they're going to get theirs offensively. Joe Burrow's having a fabulous season, but you have to get turnovers against these guys. And the first time around, if you look at that game, the Steelers sacked Burrow twice and stripped the ball, recovered both of those. They also intercepted him once. And so if you can do that against this team, you can have some success because you're taking possessions away from Joe Burrow. and that's never a bad thing.
Yeah, they swapped defensive touchdowns in the last meeting between the two teams. For the Steelers, I think you'd like to be on the plus side of that because they've been on the plus side of that up until the Cincinnati game, actually the Cleveland game, and then it's been negative in the turnover differential. But the Bengals do supply some opportunities for the Steelers.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, it's a tremendous offense, especially the passing game. But it's a little volatile, too. I mean, only the Browns throw the ball a higher percentage of the time than Cincinnati because they're really good at it, for one thing. But Burrow's DNA, he'll hold the ball a little bit longer to make a play. He's the ultimate playmaker. Their protection's not wonderful. And you just know if you're going to throw the ball that much, you're going to get tips, you're going to get overthrows. There's chances for negative plays.
Okay, so let's take a look at the key matchups in this game. And Chase Brown, their offense really changed when he got there. Zach Moss got injured, and he began to take a larger role. Well, at the end of the game last week, high ankle sprain. As of right now, he has not practiced. The team is practicing as we were taping this show. 990 rushing yards. This is an explosive player, but chances are he's not going to be playing.
It doesn't sound that way, and their running back usage is fascinating to me. So when Brown was rolling before that injury late in the game, he was getting a running back share like no one else in the league. I mean, if a running back was touching the ball these past 5, 6, 7 games, whatever, it was him. I mean, like 90% of their running back touches go to Chase Brown, whether it's as a runner or receiver. Now, they traded for Khalil Herbert, but I don't think they want him to be that guy, you know, that is going to be such a workload player. And what's other interesting about them is it's not a super high percentage, but it's the highest percentage in the league where they don't even put a running back on the field. You know, they'll come out with 0-2, 0-3 personnel, whatever, with no running backs out there. And in a crucial game, I don't know if they even fake it and just say, Burrow, you're in the shotgun. Here's 5 eligible receivers and tight ends. And, of course, they're going to run the ball some. But I bet they just say, Joe, we have to win this game, and we're not going to play the way we don't want to. We're going to throw it over and over and over.
Well, the first time around, they only ran the ball 13 times in that game with the running backs. I mean, they're a team that wants to spread you out in 11 or, you know, as Matt said, with no running back out there at all and just put the eligibles out wide. And so, you know, one of the things that Khalil Herbert has struggled with and one of the reasons why he's no longer Chicago Bears, he struggles in pass protection a little bit. And so, you know, they want to run against light boxes. That's why, you know, it's Chase Brown has been successful, I think, to a large degree. I mean, he's not a big bruising running back, but he gets a lot of light boxes against, you know, when they have those receivers out there. So I'm with Matt. I don't know if they do run the ball a whole lot in this game because putting Khalil Herbert out there doesn't really help protect your quarterback at all.
And Travion Williams is the other guy in the mix now that I think he had 1 touch in overtime. He's more the third down back, but he's barely been out there at all this year.
Right.
know?
Khalil Herbert has 8 carries.
Right.
That's
he's
it.
hardly done anything.
It's all Chase Brown. I mean,
exactly.
He's the guy carrying the ball for him. Okay, so if they throw the ball, and even if they go 5 wide, especially maybe if they go 5 wide without the running back, they're going to throw the ball quickly, or they have been throwing the ball quickly.
Yeah, and Burrow's been very successful getting rid of the ball quickly this season. I think he has the most passing yards in the league on quick throws, throws under 2.5 seconds. The first time around, the Steelers did a really good job of limiting what happened after the catch. And that Burrow had 24 passes of under 10 yards in that game. They gave up 5.8 yards per pass attempt on such plays. If you look at that compared to what happened last week against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, that was 7.9 yards per pass attempt. They can't do that. You're going to give up those quick passes. It's just going to happen. But you have to tackle the catch, particularly against Jamar Chase, because he's one of the best run after the catch guys in the league.
He's the most yards after the catch of any wide receiver since he entered the league, and he's the most again this year. He's explosive player. The other guys aren't bad either, including Gesicki. I mean, you get him the ball in space too. He's got a long strider that can run away from you too. But that quick game is going to be really important, and that's how teams attack the Steelers. They don't want to sit there patting the ball with the Steelers pass rush.
Yep, quick and also the explosive guys on the outside, which is my key, and you know, Chase and Higgins. I mean,
how
you know,
can you not bring him up? Right.
Chase is going to win the Triple Crown for receiving. That's receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He's already set the Bengals' single-season record in receptions and yards. T. Higgins is coming off a 3-touchdown performance. He's only played 11 games this year, and he's tied for 5th in touchdown receptions. So these guys are playmakers, and it's going to be interesting. The last time, I'm assuming because of body type, Joey Porter Jr. was on the bigger, more physical T. Higgins, and not that Chase is not physical, because he is, but Dante Jackson drew Chase, and they semi-contained them I mean, both guys had productive games, but not dominate, take over the kind of game. So I think I would run that back, the numbers they had the first time.
And that's the key, Rob. You can't let these guys just completely blow the game up. I think between the two of them in that game, they had 11 catches on 19 targets. I think you can kind of live with that as long as they're not getting, 40-yard catches on those things. If Chase comes out of this game with 7 or 8 catches, but it's only for 60 yards, okay, you mitigated some of the damage there. But it can't be 8 catches for 140 yards or something like that.
I mean, his average is 100. I mean, it's crazy. And Higgins is 8th in the league at 78. So I don't think you want to see those guys get to their average or above if you could possibly help it.
No, and I don't know how much they'll run the ball. I mean, I'm sure they're going to try to get the ball in those two guys' hands a ton. And I mentioned Gesicki. I just want to throw this out here too, because really during the Burrow era and the Taylor era in Cincinnati, they've been at the top of the league in the usage of 11 personnel. 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. And Tyler Boyd is gone as that third receiver. But it's really Gesicki. I mean, Gesicki, they put a TE next to his name, but really he's a big slot. So those 3 guys get a lot of targets lately.
Yeah, it was over 30 targets last week against Denver between those 3 players, including 12 by Gesicki.
Yeah, and you're right. Gesicki's the guy that they want when they're throwing the ball. They'll bring somebody else in, sample if he's healthy, or somebody else when they want to block. So there's not that sort of dual threat Pat Fryermuth kind of guy on this roster. So. It's going to be an interesting game for sure. Playoff seeding on the line and more for the Steelers trying to snap the 3-game losing streak as they take on the Bengals this Saturday night. Kickoff at Acrisure Stadium is scheduled for 8 p.m. For Dale Lolley, Matt Williamson, our entire Pittsburgh Steelers studio crew, I'm Rob King. We thank you for watching this edition of The Matchup presented by Shell Polymers.